Pets Who Thrive Radio with Tammy King.
Hello, everyone. Today, I am really excited about the guest that we have on for today's episode. His name is Carter Easter, and he's a clinical researcher, educator, and leading voice in functional medicine for pets. As the director of research and education for Myco Dog and CBD Dog Health, he bridges evidence-based science with real-world pet care, empowering veterinarians, retailers, and pet parents to use natural therapies safely and effectively. Carter served as principal investigator of the Senior Dog Study, the first decentralized veterinary clinical trial evaluating the impact of functional mushrooms and adaptogens on cognitive health in aging dogs. With advanced training through the College of Integrative Veterinary Therapies and a background in animal rescue, Carter's work blends compassion, clarity, and scientific rigor. Carter, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to diving into the Senior Dog Study.
Thanks, Tammy. I'm excited to be here. I had so much fun meeting all the folks in your community when we did some education earlier this year on mushrooms and cannabis. So I know you got a ton of knowledge already.
Yeah, no, it was great. So if you could maybe just give us an idea of how you ended up in this space. How did you end up with CBD, Myco Dog, all of that?
Well, it was really quite serendipitous. I have always had a great interest in caring for animals as well as these holistic and natural modalities. I mean, I come from a family of veterinarians. We grew up with dogs, cats, lizards, toads. It was just kind of a menagerie all along. And then I was introduced to our founder and formulator at Myco Dog, Angela Ardolino, and started working at her rescue farm in Florida, Fireflake Farm, which was a rescue for senior dogs, but also farm animals, and really anybody who was surrendered there. Kind of firsthand, I was able to see this alternative perspective from what I had learned through my veterinary family about how we can help these animals, looking in more of a longevity and proactive approach to the different conditions that these dogs, pigs, geese were bound to encounter. And also in the cases of really, really acute issues, how we could help them in that moment as well. So just really reframed how I thought about caring for senior pets. Wow, that's so cool. I didn't know you had pigs and ducks and all of that in there. Pigs. I mean, one time I remember this part of Tampa, Old Town Tampa, is kind of famous because it has all these chickens running around, and somebody rounded up 15 chickens and just dumped them on the doorstep of the rescue.
Oh, and
we suddenly had all these different brightly colored feathery chickens that came with all sorts of just issues that we have some amazing videos of Angela. I'm holding the camera and Angela's opening their beak and putting hemp extract into their mouth.
That's amazing.
Yeah, who knew that chickens could also benefit from CBD?
I know. Yeah, that's interesting. So the Senior Dog Study, kind of talk to us about how that began and just, some of the research behind that.
Yeah, so it really came out of a need from what we were seeing on our rescue. There is one dog in particular, her name was Daisy. She was a lab beagle mix, about 15 years old. And even during the short time that I had known her, I saw her cognitive changes quite dramatically. She started losing herself in corners. She would go outside to pee and forget what she was doing out there, and then come inside and she'd pee inside. This is something that she'd never done before. She started forgetting commands that she was really familiar with, making less eye contact. And we really couldn't figure it out. We were like, what's going on with her? She's eating right. She's socializing. And at that time, we didn't really have the tools to help her with this. And so there is this understanding that we have now that in the past few years, we've really started digging into how these mushrooms can help with the brain, with the neurological system, that we've gotten kind of a new lease. We've gotten this new set of tools that may be new to us and to our veterinary community, but have been used for thousands of years to help with cognitive decline. So it started out as something personal and then really grew into something that, once we knew better, we wanted to share that information and help other pet parents and veterinarians who they trust to have access to this tool.
Sure. Yeah. So how was it born?
We, basically, Angela kind of gave me the go-ahead to start researching and figuring out who could help us to make this happen so that, we had somebody in the veterinary space who is familiar with what it takes to do good science, basically. We want to make sure that this is well reasoned and has the right kind of evidentiary support to pass peer review and stand up to the rigorous standards of what great vets are going to expect from clinical research. And so we found this amazing veterinarian. His name is Dr. Joel Ahrensweig with the Veterinary Health Research Centers. And so he and I came together to design the course of this study. And we've been working on it for over a year and a half now, and designed this decentralized piece of clinical research, meaning it took place in the homes of each of these pets. It's not in a lab somewhere under fluorescent lights. This is taking place in the homes of these pets where they live every day, which I think is really important for something like this, where it's so much about their experience of getting older. And so we designed this study in order to provide insight into something that has not been studied before. This is the first piece of research that has looked at how these nootropic mushrooms can help with the aging brain and all of the symptoms of getting older that kind of circle that.
So what are some of the things, like when you talk about the mushrooms and the adaptogens, sorry, what are some of the things that you found as you were looking into these?
Well, they are such phenomenal natural healers. And what is so cool about them is they each have a different personality. They each have a different profile. And what's more, when you combine them, they have this incredible synergy with one another. So the whole is greater than the sum of its parts is often how we talk about them. For instance, lion's mane, you may have heard of. This is one that has been studied for its ability to be neuroprotective, so protect those neurons, those specialized communicator cells in the brain and central nervous system, but also to encourage the growth of new neurons. So actually to grow basically new tissue and new connections in the brain and central nervous system. Mushrooms like cordyceps. Cordyceps is one that is really known for blood oxygenation. And when we can add more oxygen to the blood, more oxygen gets to the brain. And this mushroom is just really known for helping to create energy in the body. Reishi, for instance, really fantastic for sleep, stress control. And if you are like me, I know that when I am not well slept, my brain is not functioning. I'm more stressed. I don't think as fast. And that is one of the things that we really see in these senior dogs that are experiencing cognitive decline. Their sleep is a mess. They are not resting, recovering, and healing during that critical time overnight when they should be. And a lot of these mushrooms really help with that, first and foremost.
Good. Yeah. We were talking, one of the things I remember whenever we were kind of doing our training with my store is what you guys do that sets, I guess, your mushrooms apart from others. What is, can you explain some of those that, like, from the, the way they're grown and all of that? Yeah. I mean, there's so much out there. There's so little regulation in the industry that you can find your chaga mushrooms on Amazon and they could be called chaga and you can think you're getting something really great. But there are a lot of steps that go into growing a therapeutic practitioner grade mushroom that a lot of these companies just don't know about. They've jumped into the game to
piggyback on the buzz, and they don't have this practitioner's lens, this experienced veterinary or human medical lens that they're looking at it. And so they may not know that chaga in nature grows on live birch trees. You can grow it also on rice or oats, and they may be doing that, and they can grow up fast and cheap, but the chemical constituents of oats and live birch trees are very different. And so the chaga that's natively growing on birch tree is going to have way more of those different parts that give it its therapeutic value. Other things about it, you want it to be extracted. A lot of these mushrooms, they've got a tough cell wall. We don't have the enzymes to break them down. Our dogs don't have the enzymes. So you might find a product that looks really great, but they haven't done that extraction process, which involves using hot water, alcohol to break down that cell wall so you can actually absorb all of its benefits. So you may just be it may just go right through you without you absorbing all of this. So there are a lot of different factors that can determine whether something is going to be a really high quality, like I said, therapeutic extract. And without learning all of this, without going off the deep end, my recommendation for folks is to find the people who are educating on this, who have done the vetting process, and trust them and ask them, why did you choose this one? Like, talk to Tammy. Tammy's done a lot of vetting of a lot of different products. Or go to these companies themselves and see what kind of education they provide, if it rings true, if they can answer specific questions about it. And look for the ones that are transparent and have a compelling story of where they came from and why they're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been so impressed with your products, and I know we're going to talk more about that later on, but just how effective they are in such a short amount of time. And it tells you how much quality and how much care has been put into the product. So yeah. I myself have a senior dog. She's 14, and she's kind of had some of those, things like typical, not so much confusion, but she is slowing down and she's got lumpy bumps, and so I've been giving her the combinations of the CBD and the mushrooms, and we've really seen such an uptick in her energy and just
awesome.
Yeah, she's very sassy. She keeps everybody else in line, and we love it. Yeah. So, yeah. So as far as the study goes, can you walk us through how that played out, like just kind of start to finish? And I guess, are you still in the process of doing the study?
So we are concluded at this point. We published it in December, and it was officially peer reviewed and approved at the end of December. It was a nice Christmas gift before the end of the year.
No kidding.
So it is officially published, but we are going to be extending our digital cohort. We're going to be doing another group of dogs. So if you have a dog and these things are sounding familiar to you, these behaviors we're describing, you can go to seniordogstudy.com and you can submit to be part of our virtual cohort. We will send you the product for free and you can try it. And we'll just ask you to basically answer some questions on a weekly basis to be part of it. But the way that we've designed this study is this main part that we've just published. Like I said, we wanted to make sure we were doing really good science. So we measured this condition in kind of three different main ways. The first, really just measuring the experience of the pet parents and the pets that they know. Asking this 64-point survey, marking all the different behaviors associated with CCD on a weekly basis. Changes to sleep, house soiling, anxiety, and potentially just rubs with other family members. We see a lot of senior dogs getting a little bit more crotchety and grumpy and getting lost in corners, like I mentioned before, making less eye contact, less interest in food. And then we take all of those more subjective human experience of this, and we match it up with some other objective data points. So the second part, we have them all wearing this monitoring device, a collar that tracks how long they sleep every night, how many interruptions of their rest we see, It checks their daytime activity levels. So whether they're having more vigorous activity, more kind of low energy, rested time. And then with that, we can pair it to somebody's responses saying, you know what, Fluffy actually has been sleeping better. She's not waking me up at night, every night to go pee. And we can say, you're right. On between the 27th and the 31st, her sleep efficiency increased by 18%. And so that really allows us to kind of control for that human error that we could see with just the surveys.
Yeah, that's
we then went further. This part I love. There were some really cool blood biomarkers that we were able to study that indicate changes to inflammation. CRP, it's like a generalized inflammation marker, and brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's called BDNF. And basically this protein is an indicator that there is the creation of new neurons in the brain, so that we're actually kind of building back what has potentially been lost due to this cognitive decline. There's a really interesting pattern that we often see where when that CRP is high, meaning inflammation is high in the body, then BDNF is low. That new creation of new neurons is low, which makes sense. Inflammation is high. The body is not in a generative phase. It is just trying to stabilize. And so we saw in the course of our study that CRP, that inflammation marker, decreased on an average of 27%.
Wow.
And BDNF on average went up by 35%.
That's amazing.
Yes. Which is, such an incredible indication that we can show just from these natural substances, from these mushrooms and adaptogenic herbs, where what these pet parents, often humans, are offered in the traditional pharmaceutical space, these drugs really are generally not that great. They're not doing a lot. And a lot of them come with some pretty significant side effects. I mean, my dad is going through treatment right now for dementia. And I'm shocked at how little hope they're able to offer him. So he's on Clarity.
Good. I was going to say, hopefully he's on your little recipe there.
Yeah. You bet. He's like, there's a dog on this. And I'm like, Dad, just take it. I know where it comes from. It's really good.
That's awesome. Good. Okay. So you get the dogs from in the study. Yep. You've got the collar on, you measure some blood markers. And so then how long did the study last?
So there's a 2-week period in the beginning where we just level set. We just take a picture of what their daily life is like. Then they start taking Clarity. They take it twice a day with their food. It's really easy. You can just put it right in the food. It doesn't taste bad. It's super palatable. Even cats really like it. It's great for cats too. And then we study them every day, all day. We're collecting data on them through these collars, doing these weekly surveys, and then the blood tests at the beginning and then at the end of the course. It is a 2-month course. So we're studying them for 8 weeks on Clarity. And the average kind of response time that we're seeing changes to behavioral patterns was between a week and 2 weeks. Pretty quickly, we're seeing changes to their sleep patterns, seeing them sleep for longer. We had an average total sleep time among our cohort increased by 18%. Nighttime rest interruptions decreased by 42%.
Wow.
So it went, I believe, from average of 20 to 11 sleep interruptions on average per night.
Wow.
So some really, quantifiable, really things that we can read and that are hard data that we can, like I said, align with the experiences of these pet parents where they're saying, they're these more kind of soft things where they're saying, I feel like I'm getting my dog back. Like their personality is shining through again. They don't feel as distant from me. And we can understand that and explain that by, of course, they're sleeping better and just feeling better.
Did you find that in addition to some of the things that I guess you went into the study to improve, but that maybe there were some additional things, like immune supportive things like digestion and things like that improved?
I mean, number one, I would love to do our next piece of research. I really want to look at digestive health with medicinal mushrooms, because there are so many benefits to using mushrooms for gut microbiome diversity and inflammatory conditions throughout the gastrointestinal system. Excuse me. But yes, there are a number of different dogs that were in our study that had, these are 15-year-old dogs. So they got a whole bunch of stuff going on, whether that's these lumps and bumps or allergies that present as itchiness on the skin. So we had a number of dogs that talked about food sensitivities, that they became much less sensitive to the different foods that they'd been eating and much less picky. We had dogs that were especially having seizures. There were 2 dogs that I can think of that were having chronic seizures as well, which, using this formula specifically for kind of brain function, it makes sense that you would have those sort of analogous effects with epilepsy and seizures. Lion's mane is just so fantastic for the brain. So yeah, I mean, there are a lot of ways that we can support things that are really common for senior dogs, discomfort and pain, the kind of the aches and mobility issues, these neurological degenerative conditions, and then their energy, their ability to be wakeful during the day and to sleep at night. And that alone doesn't just affect cognition. That affects the immune system, the ability for the muscles to work during the day, to have them be active during the day. I mean, that's huge. Aside from just giving supplements, making sure that your dog is getting enough activity, walking around, sleeping well. These are, we know for ourselves that this is so important to aging gracefully.
Of course. What have you seen as far as the synergistic relationship between CBD and medicinal mushrooms?
If you're familiar at all with CBD and hemp extract, these compounds that are produced by the cannabis plant, cannabis referring to the full umbrella of marijuana, hemp, cannabis, that's all the same thing. This plant interacts with this system in our body called the endocannabinoid system. That is a regulatory system. So it basically communicates with all the body's various systems in order to encourage them to function in a balanced way. And medicinal mushrooms, a number of them have been shown to also impact the function of the endocannabinoid system. So they both have this incredible regulatory property where they can just help the body to nudge it back into this place of balance. The body knows how to heal itself. All these systems are built to have these bodies be resilient and to heal themselves. And what these incredible natural substances do is they work together, but in different ways, coming from different angles. And so we see a lot of cases where you can add them together and they are just even stronger than when you use them separately. I think a lot in the cases of our cancer dogs, where there are so many different pathways that lead to cancer. The process of when cells are mutating, they are supposed to have this kind of kill switch where they stop replicating. And this mushrooms like turkey tail, they come out and they teach the immune system. They attune the immune system so that those T cells and B cells can come in and basically take out the trash and remove these cells, where cannabis has this ability, THC specifically, to sever the ties between a tumor and a blood vessel. These tumors will create a blood vessel to siphon resources off of blood vessel, and cannabinoids like THC will come in and be able to sever that connection. So when there are all these different mechanisms that can lead to these diseases, it's nice to have different fighters in there that each do different things.
Absolutely.
That's kind of how I think of synergy.
That's a really good way to put it. And, you think about so many of our pet parents, we do everything that we can to support our dog's immune system because we love them. They're our family. We want them to live as long as possible. But unfortunately, our world is a very dirty, it just is. And so there's so much toxicity out there. So I love that, it's helping the body be able to respond to some of those factors that, sometimes we just don't have control over. And so that's amazing. So what are some of the things that you guys used, and maybe even kind of helping the pet parents that are listening, for example, for cognitive decline or for mobility? What are some of the things that you found, kind of the recipe, I guess, that seemed to help the best?
Yeah. So we rely on that specialization of the different mushrooms. So like I said, each mushroom is going to have different effects. Reishi has been used for thousands of years in traditional Chinese herbal medicine. It's known as the mushroom of immortality, fantastic for controlling inflammation, balancing the immune system. It's very calming. So that reishi is a very foundational mushroom. You'll see that in pretty much all of the blends of mushrooms that we make. But then we use different mushrooms depending on what we're focusing on. So Clarity is the product that we used in the senior dog study, focused on cognitive function, neurological function. And so that has lion's mane. And like I said, cordyceps, the energy mushroom. Whereas for, say, brachycephalic dogs, like those pugs and bulldogs that get these respiratory issues, especially in the winter season when we're inside, the windows are closed, we're breathing the same air over and over again.
Exactly.
I know I'm getting some respiratory issues, but our Breathe formula has artist conch and reishi and chaga, these other mushrooms that are really known for their antiviral and antibacterial properties, as well as their ability to increase blood oxygenation and reduce inflammation to the pulmonary system. So we combine different mushrooms to specialize for these really common groups of conditions that a lot of pets are dealing with. And what we try to do as a company, both Myco Dog and CBD Dog Health, is formulate these products in a way that's really understandable for pet parents. So if you've got a dog with joint pain and discomfort, it's going to be pretty easy for you to look at CBD Dog Health's tinctures and go, oh, Ease. Ease is the one that we want. It's got frankincense and turmeric in it that are great for inflammation, as well as full spectrum hemp extract with a specific strain of hemp that is focused and targeted towards these kind of inflammation-based conditions. So our focus really is understanding that CBD is not CBD, and mushrooms are not mushrooms, that we can be really specific and targeted about how we're getting at these things, and then just practicing the highest level of standards for how we manufacture, how we source them, and how we formulate.
So tell me a little bit about kind of like dosing, safety, some of those things, because people many times they ask, oh my gosh, what if I give too much? What if I don't give enough? I don't really know, because sometimes they don't give enough and then they're like, oh, that didn't work, or they give too much and the dog sleeps all day, So if you could just maybe speak a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So what is really different about these natural compounds is they are not a super isolated processed chemical. It is not, when we think of the dangers of overdosing on pharmaceutical drugs, part of the reason that is because, say, an NSAID that your dogs might be taking, Carprofen is probably the most popular one. That is one molecule. That is the molecule Carprofen. Whereas we're giving a full spectrum hemp extract. That is just basically the unrefined extract of a medicinal plant containing thousands of different naturally occurring compounds, which all balance one another's different effects. So you get this really high safety profile. I mean, they've done research where they sought to find a lethal dose of hemp extract of both THC and CBD. There's a study that was done in 1973 where they administered 3,000 milligrams per kilogram of THC to these dogs in order to find a lethal dose. They got up to 9,000 milligrams, which is for those of you who don't understand the scale of that, that is absolutely astronomical. We would never, ever recommend that kind of dosage. Our most potent tincture, which we use for pets with cancer, having seizures, these more advanced diseases, it has less than 1 milligram of THC, and they were giving 9,000.
Wow.
And even at that level, they were not able to reach a lethal dose. So you're absolutely right in your question. There are so many cases where pet parents, they just don't even reach the therapeutic dose because they're worried about giving too much. And what we see with these mushrooms and herbs and cannabis medicines is they're very safe even at high doses, and in fact have what is referred to as a much broader therapeutic window. Basically, when you've got these super isolated molecules, and even something like a CBD isolate, they only work when you get within this really narrow window. And you go under that window and nothing happens. You go over that window and it becomes very toxic. Whereas these herbs and fungi, you've got a lot more room to play with in there. And when you go under, you still may get some of the effects. When you go over, it's still not toxic. And so I really encourage people to feel safe experimenting with that dosage and understanding that, you know, there's a lot of safety in being able to experiment and find that right dosage.
Yeah. Well, that's encouraging because, so many people are afraid, especially, some dogs, they get into it and they lick it up and, oh my gosh, so that is encouraging.
Yeah, a lot of people have had that experience where, dog has gotten into a human stash, and that can be really dramatic. That can be super scary. I mean, you can have a dog that is totally passed out. It can last for a couple days, and you take them to the vet, and a lot of vets don't know about, and they can really scare people because they were taught that cannabis is toxic to dogs.
Sure.
And but really there's a lag. There's a lag in perception where research shows that there is no damage on a cellular, on a tissue, or an organ level of using these, especially cannabis and mushrooms. I just encourage people to think of these more like a food supplement. Think of it less as a pill in a bottle and more as a functional food, something that is naturally occurring, that the body knows how to use, that is not just going straight for that receptor, that is teaching the body, that is encouraging the body to perform its own function. So it's kind of like, if there's like a gateway that it has to pass through to have function in the body, rather than just kind of going straight to that effect, turning off inflammation or whatever it may be.
Yeah, because the body it wants to thrive, it wants to survive, it's capable of healing itself. It's just giving it the tools to be able to do that. So that's awesome.
And the goal always long term is not, we don't want to have our animals on 5 different drugs and things that they're going to be on for the rest of their life that are taxing their kidneys and their livers. If there are cases, and in most cases, I don't think that dogs should have to use CBD or mushrooms forever necessarily at these high therapeutic doses. The goal is to bring the body back to balance so that we can eventually have these pets' bodies working for themselves and functioning optimally in a much less reactive way, rather.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really different. We shouldn't want to have to do this forever.
One thing I really liked on the website, it talked a little bit about the senior dog study, is that it had little case studies. And, you have the name of the dog, and, you can picture them because it has the breed. And I loved how, each of them, like, there was severe cases, there were moderate, and just some of the results that you guys were able to achieve. I mean, it's just amazing, because what that equals is quality of life, and the people getting to enjoy their pet again. And, so that was amazing.
Yeah, these stories are so human, and it's easy to just get excited about these numbers. 81% of the dogs in our study showed a stabilization or an improvement in their cognitive scoring. But cognitive scoring doesn't encompass these experiences of people who have been watching their friend fade, and who have stayed home from work because they were scared of what their pet's experience was being alone and being stressed out. There was one of our cases, her name was Jasmine. Her dog was really struggling. She was waking up all through the night. He was barking at nothing through the night. And then during the day, she was watching him from her camera on her phone in her apartment and seeing that he was just totally freaked out. He was stressed. He was heightened. He was barking through the day. And she stayed home from work a number of times to just be with him because it was tearing her up. Yeah. And using Clarity every day, pretty much after a week, he was able to sleep through the night, and during the day be way more calm and have not this heightened, terrified experience. This little Yorkie named Fatback. I love that name.
That's amazing. I love that. And that's what's so cool is that, yeah, these people, they love their animals and they just, they don't want to see them suffer. And if we can do anything to help make their lives more, beautiful and enjoyable, it's just amazing. And I love what you guys are doing. Yeah. So what are some of the things that you learned from the study that I guess maybe that you were surprised?
It really just reinforced for me, I think, something that I have always believed, but really quantified how important it is for us to anticipate these changes, and that being proactive always is going to give us the best results. So not waiting until we're in crisis mode to make some changes. We saw the greatest improvement of the dogs in our cohort were those that were in that beginning to moderate phase. And so, this is something that in holistic and integrated medicine, we talk about all the time, not waiting till something is really an issue to act. And I think that has just informed so much about how I look at my own life. And I think that is something that has really been echoed by a lot of the pet parents in our study is they go, oh man, if this can do this for my dog, why am I not thinking about this?
Exactly.
Which is such an important lesson.
It happens. It's kind of like an organic thing that just happens as a result of seeing the difference in their pet. So
yes. Yes. I know probably a lot of your listeners, they feed their dog amazing food and then come home and they look at their dinner and they're like,
so
if you're anything like me.
Yeah.
I'm like, Archie, you are a lucky boy.
I know. I saw Archie get up a while ago and I laughed because he has the half white and black face and he matches your background.
Right. Totally.
He's so cute.
He's like, oh, there's Dad gabbing again at the computer.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what would be some of the things that you would tell pet parents, and maybe even just kind of touch on briefly some of the products that you have and what they're best designed to give, for?
There's such a wide breadth of different issues that our pets are going to suffer from. And we can draw a lot in terms of information about what we can expect based on the type of dog they are, the type of cat that they are. If I had a large breed dog, like a golden retriever or a Doberman, I would be looking ahead and saying, you know what, I'm probably going to need to anticipate that there's going to be some lumps and bumps and some cancer in the future. I would have them on a blend of mushrooms, like our Vitality product that has mushrooms like turkey tail, like reishi, that are fantastic for cancer, that have been studied extensively for their regulatory effects on cellular health. Our Heal tincture, which is our most potent blend of hemp extract, that again is designed for that cellular health and allowing the immune system to better surveil those cellular irregularities. If you've got a dog with food sensitivities, I would be looking at a number of ways, because gut health and and immune dysfunction are complicated beasts. But one of the ways that mushrooms and hemp are so fantastic for that, I mentioned before, hemp extract, fantastic for regulating the release of gastric acid, controlling inflammation throughout the gut, fantastic for leaky gut and IBD. Our ease tincture really is what we use for allergies and those gut issues. Our digest mushrooms, again, like chaga, red belted conch, that are really unique for their ability to help not only the gut, but sort of those peripheral organs that, for instance, helping to control blood sugar, regulating blood sugar and the release of insulin, and aiding with gut microbiome diversity. We talked about Breathe for respiratory and cardiovascular issues. If you got a, King Charles Spaniel that's got bound to get some heart issues, you want to use these different herbs, mushrooms that are going to be beneficial in aiding those. But I'm focusing a lot on proactive care and
yes,
longevity.
it's so important. It's so important. Yeah.
Yes. But then there are also cases where in acute situations, alternative medicine is this word that gets thrown around. This is the original medicine.
Exactly.
These herbs and fungi have always been what we turn to. And the idea that they can't be used in these moments where we need something to work fast is a misnomer. You can absolutely help these animals if they are having grand mal seizures, and you can go and you can give these animals a full spectrum hemp extract and you can stop their seizures. I have seen it. The research in clinical settings supports that. And so there's a lot that we can do even in those acute situations using these natural modalities.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I do want to touch on, is that I think so many times when we do have an acute issue that does seem to be severe and fear, people are fear-based about it, and rightfully so, it immediately you go to pharmaceuticals, and there's so many options. Whether it's the mushrooms, the CBD, herbs, homeopathy, there's so many things that, again, help the body heal itself. And if we can look to those things and learn more about them, it's truly amazing what they can do.
I mean, I didn't even mention anxiety and fear. I think it's one of the ways that people first find CBD and hemp extract, and sort of in opposition to what people think. I think that dealing with anxiety for pets, it's one of the more challenging things to do in terms of finding the right dosage, because it's such a subjective experience. These little Yorkies and Terriers and Chihuahuas, they're just more anxious. They just, there's like a higher level of tension and fear in their body often than our Great Danes and our Labs. They're often chilling a lot more. And so there is, I always tell people who say, I use CBD, it didn't work for me. I mean, first I'm going to say, well, was it full spectrum? Was it the right potency? Was it grown organically? Is it super refined and isolated? Did you buy it at 7-Eleven? But then I'm going to go, okay, well, I know that there is a dosage that we're going to be able to calm your dog down. It's just a matter of doing some experimentation. That's why we have our regular strength calm and we've got an extra strength calm. Some dogs are just going to need more. And remembering that it is extremely safe, we just need to do a little bit of experimenting in order to find what their specific level is. And if it's a chronic thing, if they're an anxious dog, we got to keep using it. We got to do it every day, because there are oftentimes we're working on, there are hormonal imbalances. There are chemical things that are happening in the brain. We've got high cortisol that has been dysregulated for years potentially. Right. And so using, again, a number of different things. I'd be using Calm or hemp extract, as well as Clarity, or the same one that was used in our senior dog study. It has, in addition to those mushrooms that we discussed, has ashwagandha, this incredible herb that is quite present in Ayurvedic traditions, so traditional Indian medicine. And ashwagandha has been shown to be able to decrease cortisol levels by 30%. So really targeting that stress, and over time being able to bring our dogs back to normal so that we can, they don't have this experience of being constantly in fear, which then bumps on to cause inflammation, tenseness, all these different autoimmune conditions that pets and humans alike experience that are caused by stress.
Of course. Yes. It's so bad on the body.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some of the things, like when you're looking at, you said you're looking for another study. What are there other things or additional things that you're looking to accomplish with this, or is it continued from the first study?
The primary goal of this study is to get the information out there so that when the thing that I heard over and over and over again when I was interviewing these pet parents is they went to their vets and they said, what can I do about this? And their vets said, there's nothing that we can do about this. It's an inevitability at this point. And so the point of this study is to challenge this idea that getting older means we have to accept degeneration and discomfort and watching the personalities and the connections of our animals fade. That's not normal aging. Right. And there's this acceptance that that's just what we have to accept. So we want to challenge that perspective. And when people go to their vets and say, hey, what can we do to help my dog with this, that vet maybe has heard of this piece of research, or that pet parent has, and they say, hey, what do you think about this? They bring, I don't know how to read this clinical research. Have you seen this? And they put this in the hands of their vets so that more people understand that these tools are real, that they are well researched, and they have stood the test of time because of how powerful they are. Yep.
And I too was a pet parent that happened to about 16 years ago. I had a senior dog, and he was doing the, going into the corners at night, and it was the same thing. There was nothing we could do. And I didn't, this was a world that I had not entered into yet, so I didn't realize that there were alternatives to what was being recommended. So now, I always have, dogs that I have in the past, and I know people do it too. You just, you go, oh, if I would have only known,
Yeah, but, of course.
Yeah. But that's what, that's the great thing about, you do the best you can with the information that you have. And now you can be armed with more information.
Yeah. I mean, we have to take stock of where we are in the context of where we've come from, because it's really easy to get down on yourself for not knowing better. And I just want everybody out there to give yourself a big hug and recognize that by being in this room, by listening, you are making a commitment to learning better and to doing better by your dogs and yourself. And that's all that we can do. And I am so inspired by seeing the way that the conversations are just becoming more nuanced and more well-informed, the way that people are doing good research.
Yes.
That they're taking it into their hands, and they're listening to some guy on a podcast saying the word endocannabinoid system and deciding to keep listening.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. What are some of the things that you want to leave the listeners with today?
I would say, know your animal. Look at them, touch their paws, look into their eyes, know their behaviors, see what's going on with them on a daily basis. These tracking devices that you can use, if you can't keep all this information in your head, are really great tools to stay up on what's going on with them. And rather than taking these hard right or hard left turns when something goes wrong, we should be looking to make 1% adjustments every day in this direction or that direction. And that is about trial and error, whether it is the dosage of your CBD or your mushrooms, or whether that is the food that we're feeding. Making these small adjustments over time makes it so much easier for us to give them the kind of quality of life that we want for our family members, and be able to live long, happy lives with them.
But most definitely. I love that. Yes. Carter, if you could just remind people how they can find you again, if they're interested in participating in the study, Just let people know how to get in touch with you guys.
Yeah, so you can find us at Myco Dog on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, kind of everywhere. At Mushrooms for Dogs is Myco Dog, at Mushrooms for Dogs. And then the Senior Dog Study is seniordogstudy.com. That's where you can sign up if you want to join our virtual cohort. And you can find me on Instagram as well, at The Functional Pet.
That's awesome. Well, this has been such a pleasure. And I know a lot of people have learned so much by listening today. And thank you again for sharing your wealth of knowledge. We really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you, Tammy. I always enjoyed talking to you.
Absolutely.
Pets Who Thrive Radio with Tammy King.